Hi, everybody. Paul Walsh here with my friend Michael Dobbs. I'm kicking this off with a very quick look at how I think the weather this year compared to last year is going to trend as we move through the end of summer into fall and then into holiday. To provide you some reference, last week I shared with you a presentation that I did for a very large retailer where we were looking at the spring of 2019. And you can see from that slide weather conditions were likely to trend cold, to get very mild, to drive a very strong spring, and then drop down and become colder than the prior year. When you look at the next slide, you can see how that actually validated. And then you can also see how that validation correlated with that particular retailer's same-store sales. So I'm just showing you that to give you a benchmark before looking at the upcoming end of summer, fall, and then holiday. So with that, when we take a look at the next slide, you can see that what we're expecting is that we're actually going to see a little bit of a cooler back-to-school season in late summer. And that's against a very hot summer last year, so we will have conditions that are relatively cool. But when we move into fall, that's where there's going to be some significant risk compared against relatively cold weather last year, which drove a very, very sharp start to fall buying. And then when we moved into holiday last year, that cold weather turned off and we had relatively mild weather, and it ended up being a relatively difficult holiday season. This year, the statistics show that it's likely to be much different. It's going to be colder, and we're going to see demand for seasonal items turn on very, very sharply just in time for Thanksgiving.
Thanks so much, Paul. The numbers and the graphs that Paul has been sharing have really been based on a national average of what we expect the weather to be. What we do when we sit down with a retailer or a CPG company to talk about this, we try to make sure this needs to reflect the footprint that our partner has. So if we're talking to a retailer, we'll look at where their stores are placed. If we're talking to a retailer that's more nationally based, we'll break it down into regions so that we've got relevant information for those stores. But with that said, looking at things on a national base for the US, what we're seeing is that as we're coming out of the summer, it's going to be a cooler mid to end summer than it was last year. So what's that going to mean from a merchandise and a retail perspective? Well, customers tend to go outside more when it's a little bit cooler towards the end of the summer because it's more comfortable. And so we would expect things like sun products and grilling products to probably sell better than they did last year. So that's good going into that time frame. But as we look at the fall, what we can see is that it's going to be a milder fall. If you have the opportunity as a retailer to hold off on putting in your fall set and capitalize on your summer set, that's probably going to do you justice. And very importantly, if you can push your promotional spends and hold on to that for a little bit later, that's going to be a great decision as well. Transitioning into holiday, what we see is that it's going to be a warmer season into October and the beginning of November than what we had last year. So customers are not going to be making that transition as early. Comps are probably going to be a little bit harsh in the October timeframe into the beginning of November. However, towards that second to third week of November, temperatures are going to start dropping, customers are going to start shopping again, and we actually look for a really good holiday season this year because we do see this nice switch. The big point here is don't panic. If you start seeing in October that your sales are not coming in, we would almost expect that this year given the temperature change. So hold on to your promotional dollars, try to hold off doing clearances, and get ready for that second to third week of November when we would expect to start seeing sales taking off. And finally, it looks like it's going to be a great holiday year from a weather perspective. The temperatures are falling into place from that mid-November through to end of December. And so we expect customers to be out and to be shopping. However, we still have COVID-19. So customers are not going to want to be in crowds during this time. Still expect to see Black Friday sales, but we do expect to see a lot more going online this year than even last year. This has been a trend. Black Friday for the last few years has been more and more happening online. Cyber Monday getting stronger as well. We expect COVID-19 to really push that trend going into the 2020 holiday season. Thank you so much for your time. Should you have any questions about how you can use weather and weather triggers to really activate your business, Paul and myself would love to talk to you about it. Please feel free to reach out to us. Thanks again.